Well, hello! It's time for another exciting episode of Pens in Use. This is the show where I look at the fountain pens and inks that I've been using throughout the week. So, let's dive into it. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens, both new and old, and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And what have you discovered that you thought you knew but are learning a lot better? Or perhaps, what did your education prepare you for that you're not doing, but something you didn't get an education for you are doing? That'll make more sense when I get to it. So let's dive into the pens. Alright, so these are the pens that I've been using this week. From left to right, I have my Aurora 88 Jolvid edition, which is filled with an interesting ink that I like. I have my Katab, which is from Israel/Palestine, depending on when it was made. My Omas Ogiva, Parker 51, that for a brief moment I thought was a Pevdi. A Sailor 1911S, a Parker 180, a Parker Sonnet, Aurora DuoCart, Montblanc 32, and a PenBBS 355. So let's see how these puppies write. So my first pen is a Jolvid edition of the Aurora 88. I've always, I don't know, that I've said before, this finish does not remind me of Jupiter at all. And yet the first time I saw it, I was just like, want! And I've liked several of their finishes. I really like the Soleil finish, but I've always talked myself out of it. But, I don't know, I gave in this time. I have the broad nib in this pen. And the ink is Birmingham pens. Allegheny River Twilight, which now they just call Twilight. I know when I first saw this pen, this is actually one of the inks I thought of in this pen, but at the time, you couldn't get this ink. So this is one of the few inks I have purchased since I decided I don't need any more inks, because it's on my very short list of inks that if I do see one, I'm going to buy it. And I'm not disappointed. I like this color, just for kind of a dusky purple. And part of it could be the emotional thing, because I've mentioned before my town that I grew up in, well, spent high school in, I guess, was right along in fact, the Allegheny River ran right through my town. Starts in my county, actually, and then it gets a little bigger by the time it gets to Pittsburgh, of course. But yeah, I've just got a soft spot for the Allegheny River, I guess. My next pen is an interesting discovery. I forget when I reviewed it, but this is a Katab. Depending on the era, and you have to look at a little bit of history there. Oh, never mind. I was about to say it's either made in Israel or Palestine. But I guess we got a Palestinian pen. And you want a little bit of controversy or some fun? Check out the history of this area of the world. So, I love the finish on this pen. I think it's beautiful. The nib is nothing amazing. But if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I'm all about kind of these more lesser-known brands. That made no sense. I'm all about these lesser-known brands anyway. Can't tell if the camera's focusing on that or not, so I'm going to give up. But I'll tell you roughly what it says if I can read it here. Warranted quality, and then there's a K. Oh, warranted first quality. And there's a K in a circle, 14 CC 585. That means it's 14 karat. And then something really small I can't make out. I would bet that when I did the original review, I have all that information in the review. So this is a Katab, and as you can see, it may be 14 karat, but not a flex nib. The ink in it is Callifolio, because I was thinking I haven't used any Callifolio ink in a while. Callifolio Bleu Azur. And since it's French, adjective follows the noun, so I guess you can use blue as a noun in French. So I'm guessing something like sea blue. I'll be honest, it's been more striking in other pens I've used it in. It's okay here, but I could, use my Parker Quink, and I don't think I'd know the difference. But Callifolio is a good brand if you're into vintage pens. Or if you're not into vintage pens. I mean, it's just a nice brand. They make nice inks, and they're safe. This next pen I had inked up last week. This is kind of a sleeper, and it's kind of got the Old Man Winter ink in it. This is a Omas Ogiva with the extra flessibile nib. Sadly, you can't get these anymore. And I believe, from what I've seen and read, these pens are a bit overpriced now on the eBay market. So I could probably get more than I paid for it. One thing I've been noticing on my recordings is I seem to rotate this. So I wanted to see, I'm making the conscious effort to line it up straight. So I wanted to see if I really am rotating it, or if that's just a function of the camera. So medium extra flessibile, and the ink in it is Iroshizuku. Fuyu-syogun. And I want to say, I was going to look this up. One of their grays is supposed to be something like Old Man Winter. Syogun. Gun, not gum. Anyway, this is a nice wintry ink, so I'm digging it. But then again, it could also be, a stormy sky in the summer. I don't know, Iroshizuku makes nice colors. I'm here trying to use up my bottles of Iroshizuku just so I can have fewer bottles. But I do enjoy their colors, and their theming is nice. I like the whole idea of, well, let's focus on colors of Japan. I think if I ever start an ink series, I'm going to do colors of North Dakota. Just kind of a neat theme to put together, and then you can just pull in any new color you want anytime. Like, oh, that's a pretty flower. Wait, it's growing in Japan. Let's do it. So, you can go nuts with that. This is my Parker 45. So I made a joke about Parker used to make counterfeit Pevdis. I will tell you why I made that joke. This isn't the box, because the box is downstairs. But I had a Pevdi box. This pen came in it. So I started saying, well, isn't it interesting? This looks so much like a Parker 45. And then I didn't see, because it's so worn off here, I didn't see the word Parker there. And lots of pen makers, use that clip. Do I have any tonight? No, of course not. Here's one that will be in a video soon. I filmed it, I just haven't published it yet. A Marshall with a nifty arrow clip. So anyway, so I'm like, yeah, this is a Pevdi, and look, you open it up. Oh, golly, doesn't that look just like a Parker 45? And then I take it apart, and I don't have the converter here. But I said, ooh, they even used a Parker converter in it. I'm just, durr, because it's a Parker 45. And no, Parker did not make counterfeit Pevdis. It just happened to be sold as a Pevdi by the person selling it, and in a Pevdi box, because I'm going to guess the person selling it just really didn't know anything about Pevdis. They're just like, oh, it's Pevdi box, Pevdi. Again, I like those more exotic brands that nobody uses or nobody knows about, so I had purchased it. Now, God, here I go. I'm talking about Pevdis, and what do? Parker 45! And this nib is a broad. And the ink in it is Parker Quink. Pink. See, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. So I made a comment about Parker ink colors a few weeks ago. Even asked people to comment. And one of the comments led me to spend some money because they said, well, you can still get Parker Quink in several different ink colors and if you buy the cartridges. I'm like, what? And they're right. So 2 of them arrived this week. I'm curious to see if the other 2 colors arrive next week. So my pink arrived like this. I've opened it, obviously. And then you'll be seeing purple in a pen or 2 here. The only thing I noticed with these, so I may attempt to deal with this in the next video. Or, sorry, not the next video, probably. But the next time, when these cartridges run dry. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of airspace in there, so I feel like there's been quite a bit of evaporation, and that may be why this doesn't look particularly pink. More of a light purple. So I will just try rehydrating the next cartridge with a syringe and some distilled water, and before I pop it in the pen, and we'll just see what happens. So, the next pen I had before, Sailor 1911S with a zoom nib. I had Iroshizuku Kon-peki in it, which is some kind of a sea color, I think. Drawn a blank. So, Sailor. So part of the fun of the zoom nib is if you write more upright, like this, it should make a finer line. I mean, it is super uncomfortable, but... And then if you write it really laying down, like at the uncomfortable level, it should make a very broad line. So the result is you've got a lot of line variation just in one nib, which I think is kind of clever. I think if I wrote... well, I've been working on a lot of projects lately, but I think Asian writing might take advantage of this quite a bit. My next pen has the other Parker ink in it. This is a Parker 180. Surprisingly slim pen. I'd forgotten how slim it was. I haven't written with it in a while. And it has an interesting nib. It's two-sided, because one side is an extra fine, the other side is a medium. So I'm going to try to write with both sides, and I'll do the majority of my writing with medium, because we all know which one I'll like better. So this is a Parker 180. So XM, extra fine medium. And I switch to the other side for the name of the ink. Guess which nib size this is. Parker Quink. It's even a little scratchy. Purple. So I'm going to switch back to medium. The extra fine, I think, is just too extra fine. That truck that was parked out there is gone now because I'm not hearing the weird noise through the door. I don't know if that's the first time I've ever heard that noise or what was going on, or just because I'm sitting over here when it happened to park out there. A weird noise, though. So, is the purple and the pink that exciting? Well, no, but it is kind of cool to see some of the different colors. Parker can do it. They can do colors. But then I also wonder, isn't ink a bit of a niche market where you just can't really make a big profit off of it? I don't know. I know Noodler's branched out into pens, but then you have companies like Diamine that seem to stick with just ink and do fine. or Girbon, which is mostly ink with a couple of interesting things. And I don't know. And who knows what other fingers or what other areas they may have their fingers in. You know, Sailor has a plethora of inks, and but they also have the pens. So yeah, I don't know. There used to be a blog called Pen Economics, but it seems to have gone away. That would be a topic I would think they could explore. This is my Parker Sonnet. It's kind of breathing on fumes right now. But since it's still full of ink and I used it all week, I honestly didn't think it would make it to today, but here it is. So this is a medium oblique. Actually, it's a right-hand oblique because Parker has that whole deal backwards. So this ink is another Iroshizuku. This Iroshizuku is Momiji. I just got a pen pal letter from somebody written in this ink, and theirs was very purple. So I'm not sure if they didn't clean the pen out or if possibly I have a defective bottle. I just don't know. But it took me by surprise. All right, a few more. I wrote with a lot of pens this week, and actually the two Parkers, the 180 and the 45, were not even going to be in this week's rotation. But then those cartridges arrived in the mail. I'm like, oh, gotta use them. I just gotta know. So we have extra pens this week. This was actually going to be a very unchanged week in pens in use. So, not anymore. All right, my Aurora DuoCart. It's getting low. I don't know if it'll make it to next week. I knew it would make it to this week. Just a very nice pen. And it's got that nice heritage of the Aurora, the original Aurora 88. So this is the Aurora DuoCart. Whoops, DuoCart. And the ink in it is Iroshizuku. Because I really am trying to run some of those bottles empty. Yu-yake. Very nice shading orange. I enjoy the orange. Some of my favorite shirts are orange. I don't happen to live in an orange house, although my living room is painted a very non-aggressive orange. Is that a good word for it? It's called Morning Sun at Ace Hardware. Alright, so we got my Montblanc 32. This has another ink in it, which is in a very small bottle, so I'm hoping to use it up. You know, not frivolously, just kind of focusing on one or two at a time. Montblanc. And see. And yeah, it's got the bird splat. 32, this is an extra fine nib. I got this pen from, well, they were called Myober pens back then, now they're called Proto pens. I'd originally ordered a vintage Aurora 88 for them, and I was super excited to get it. And somewhere in the German Postal Service, it got smushed. Bad, beyond all possible repair. So they wrote me and said, what would you like to do here? Because we can't send you the pen as is. There is no hope for it. So they offered me the chance to either pick something else, or I can't remember if I was offered credit or a refund, but doesn't matter. Anyway, the important thing is they made every effort to make it right, which is the sign of a good business. And I picked this one, and then I realized, oh, whoops, it's $10 more expensive. And they said, oh, don't worry about it. So I've got a nice Montblanc. I will admit, I like the Aurora 88 model better. I managed to find some. Not in as good a shape as I would have found them from Proto pens, back then my Uber pens, but still in good shape. Okay, one has a little bit of a leaking problem, but a lot of fun. And they're both definitely scratched up. One's very faded, but very enjoyable model of pen. So, and I got my very first and so far only true Montblanc there. I was talking about counterfeits last week, and yeah, the Montblanc 149 is one that gets counterfeited a lot. And, you know, when I say counterfeit, I mean not a, well, the clip looks the same, or looks the same shape, or the trim rings are the same, but I mean an honest to God, hey, I'm a Montblanc, but I only cost $90. Whoa. Because I've priced them before. Many hundreds of dollars anyway. It's not a pen I'm really interested in owning. Can I say that? About the pen that's supposed to be the Grail pen? Okay, so this next pen, which I've already uncapped, this is kind of a fun pen. This is a PenBBS 355. That's kind of an interesting manufacturer to follow. They're bringing back, some of the more interesting filling mechanisms of the past. That's something Edison does. I don't know if they have too many in common with Edison that they've both brought back, but I was just trying to think. Edison has one, it's like a pulley-outy thing, touchdown filler. No, I don't think they've done a touchdown filler. But anyway, it, definitely has that no, not COVID-19. It'll come to me. Just give me a minute. Coated bulk filler look to it, but I don't know. I think it's really its own animal, because there are a gazillion demonstrators that have this basic look to them. What really makes the coated bulk filler is not the exterior design. It's the really unique filling mechanism, which this has, because as it turns out, it's not such a unique filling mechanism. It's actually older than either of these companies. Draw filler. This has a 6mm. Last week I wasn't sure, but I went back with I used my cell phone as a magnifying glass, a trick a student taught me a couple years ago. Like, oh, there is a use for cell phones. But, come on. So, anyway, it's a 0.6mm Nemosine nib. I like it. I didn't really care for the nib that came for this. I had a broad Nemosine nib in it, but that's the one where I had the little oopsie where it just got destroyed when I capped it because I didn't push the feed nib in far enough. This ink in it is Rohrer and Klingner. Alt-goldgrün, which is, I think, a really fun color. I don't know, there's just something about it. I struggle with the word beautiful when I look at this color, but it definitely has its own special kind of magic. And of course, this pen, got to make sure I turn the blind cap closed before I put it away. Doesn't look like I've written some with it because it was full to the top last week, but I don't feel like I've written a lot with it. And that is a pen that'll take forever to use up. I mean, at least 2.5mm of ink in that bad boy, so, But anyway, those are the pens and inks that I've been using this week. So, those are the pens and inks that I've been using this week. I've been sitting here thinking I look too dark, but my iPad is sitting down. I think it's because it's just at an angle. I don't usually have it sitting here, so hope that's it. If I've been in the dark this whole video, I'm sorry. But I was actually thinking a little bit about a couple of random things this week. One of them, I did my post-apocalyptic pen review this week of the Schrade Tactical Fountain Pen. I really, really, really wanted to film that thing in the winter, hopefully with cold. Snow was kind of optional, and I wanted to do it at Medicine Rock State Park in Montana, which Google that if you want to see. It's a interesting place. If I remember, I'll try to put a link. I think I did a video on it. If I didn't, then there won't be a link down below, I guess. But anyway, kind of a neat place. It was on the coast of where an ocean used to be. And these are the sand dunes left, or I should say dunes left by rivers in the delta that was running into the ocean there. And they became fossilized over the years. It's just a really neat landscape, and it's just really close to where I live. Over in Montana. But I used the word snow there. We got quite a bit of snow and ice. Ice the one day and then snow the other day. And I'm just like, woo, I don't know. I don't want to risk myself on ice if I don't have to. So why were you driving the car and you ended up in the ditch? We had to pull you out and now you got to buy a new car? I wanted to film a pen review in Montana. Yeah, I don't want to have that conversation. And, the other one is I get into Medicine Rock State Park and I get stuck. Cell service doesn't work there. It's Montana. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And that's a long flipping way to get any help because, well, go to the ranger station. There isn't one. There's little mailboxes you go in and you drop in your money and it's all on the honor system. So, if I got stuck in there, I'd be in trouble. So I'm estimating we got around 6 inches. It's hard to tell around here because it always blows around. But yeah, it was enough that I just thought, no. So I ended up doing, and then I, of course, after the ice, I thought, well, worst case, I can just go out in the Badlands somewhere. But, it got to be Sunday, and I'm just like, well, backyard. So I did my best in my backyard. My neighbor's house kind of appeared in it once or twice. I didn't mean to. I was trying to hide it, but, And somebody came up with a great suggestion I wish I'd taken when I filmed the video, because I'm like, well, I got to reference the snow. So I said, it's August. But they pointed out, well, it could have been the ashes of a destroyed world. Why didn't I think of that in a post-apocalyptic video? But anyway, yes, my answer to another question, my throat did hurt after that. I was going to film several videos that night, and after doing the voice I used in that video, my voice said, no more. So I didn't film any more videos. I'm filming this not on the night, because I was going to film this that night, and that didn't happen. COVID-19 is still raging across North Dakota. Our governor still doesn't want to do a mask mandate or anything, and we have to let people choose the right behavior. Well, they don't. That's why you have laws and things. It's a public health thing. But at our school, we are mask mandated. It's interesting with the kids because just like you got to wear goggles during the lab, the whole wearing the mask thing is another battle you got to fight. Well, it's on my head, and they've got it up here, or they're wearing it down below their chin, or what's it matter? After school, I'm going to hang out with them anyway. It's like, well, we're not responsible for you after school, kid. And clearly somebody needs to be if you're thinking that way. So, that's always fun. But the nice thing is, I don't know how it is in other states, but in this state, if both people are wearing a mask, they're not a close contact. So it takes a lot of work away from the school. The school doesn't have to say, well, were they sitting together? Were they within 6 feet? We got to get out the tape measure. We just say, mask mandate! And we're fine. So, the schools that haven't made that decision yet are just like questioning what the heck are they thinking. As institutions of education, we should be supporting the science anyway. So, go science. Woo! Science teacher here. All right, and then the other thing on that topic, I have probably mentioned before, I went to college to be a physics teacher. Originally I went to be a math teacher, but it wasn't too far into that. I said, oh my God, I can't even imagine teaching this because it's not even that interesting. In high school it kind of came easily to me, but in college it was just a different animal. And luckily I had to take physics as part of my major, and that class, like, holy cow, this makes sense, which it didn't in high school. So, I don't know, a little maturity there or whatever. But anyway, I switched to being a physics major, and actually the physics made a lot of the math take sense, so I took math as electives and ended up, I'm certified for both now, weirdly enough, but I'd still rather teach science. I'm sorry. I mean, I appreciate math a lot more now, and I do see the beauty and fun in it, but I can't imagine teaching it every day. So, if I had to do a period or two of math, that would be fine. I've done almost all math classes at one point in my career, but I'm happy not. So, I'd rather teach science. But on that note, so physics degree, and if I'd stayed in a larger area, I probably could have been teaching physics all day, or I might have had like physics and then maybe one or two classes of physics, and then maybe like a general science or something. Where I student taught, I did like 2 general science classes and a physics class. And, the college, they're like, okay, I'm so sorry about this overload of courses, because 3 is kind of a lot. And, I look at it now where I have 5, and at one point in my career I had 6, and I'm just thinking, yeah, 3 really isn't a lot. But anyway, that was where I thought I would end up. But then I ended up applying for a job in North Dakota, taught everything there. I had to fill in some gaps with coursework and so on, because I'm also certified, at least in North Dakota, for all the sciences. I've taken the praxis and everything, so I think I would be certified in a lot of states, probably not all of them, but a lot of them in all the sciences and math. But I've been doing some things over the past few years that weren't really on the agenda back then in college. For example, right now I'm teaching a STEM class, and we've been working with electronics. And I'll be honest, in college, I took some classes that involved the theory, the physics behind electricity and all that, the quantum mechanics. But the actual practical stuff, other than the basic physics too, never did it. I never worked with a breadboard. I never touched all these. We had to learn the theory of capacitors. I remember they were these giant metal plates that you moved different distances apart, and you were supposed to measure, what was it, the voltage across? It's been so long. I want to say the voltage across them. We're talking more than 2 decades ago I was doing this. But anyway, yeah, it's been a new world. And, I've done it, I don't know if this is my second or third time now, but, doing it several times. And then, some of the other stuff, like we've done some Arduino programming, which uses the language C. I might be getting into some Python programming. And in another class, I've done some JavaScript programming. And oh yeah, I have actually taught a computer science course, because I'm certified to teach a little bit of that now. And what I'm just trying to say is not where I saw myself back in college. Now, I did take 1 or 2 electives in computer programming just kind of for fun. I mean, do you really take assembler for fun? But I did. And, not really where I would have seen myself heading back when I was in college. I definitely have had to learn a lot. And I'm not sure what kind of certification you would get if you just want to teach that. I mean, North Dakota, I don't think has it. Do larger states have certifications in electronics, or does that somehow fall under vocational technical? I don't know. I'm out of touch with all that. But, I've had to definitely get in touch. And what's kind of wild is just how much you learn. And, I started noticing this back when I was in college and I student taught, that, holy cow, you finish a class and you think, well, doggone, I know that stuff now. And then you have you're put in front of a room full of teenagers and have to explain it to them. And it's like, oh, yeah. And you develop it to a much better depth. And, how much of that is the repetition? How much of that is trying to put it in a new format? How much of that can be replicated within a classroom? If you've ever done those projects, if you're a teacher, where you have kids teach something, it usually doesn't go very well. I remember when I was in high school, I want to say I was a junior or a senior, one or the other. I took Spanish 3, and we had to teach a lesson to the Spanish 1 class. And it was just bad. I wasn't good at it, and and then you get marked down because you don't do good teaching skills. Like, I'm a junior in high school, I don't know anything about teaching. And it really didn't help me learn whatever the topic was any better. All I remember is the failure feeling from it. But I don't know, something about teaching it definitely has helped me learn topics. And, as you teach it several times, and you start finding new nuances, and you think, oh, what if I do this differently? Helps keep it fresh, because, oh my God, if I taught the way I taught back in fall of 1999, so I guess I'm in my 21st year of teaching now. If I still taught that way, I think I'd be out of teaching, because it was just awful. My biology class did maybe 2 labs that year. None of my classes did very many labs, because I just there's so much that I don't know. And, trying to teach biology with a physics degree. And like I said, I had to take some coursework. And junior high classes, which I had no experience at junior high at all before I was suddenly in a classroom with them. It just... and managing 6 different preps was quite something too. So I just don't know how I did it back then. But anyway, muddled through. I guess we all learn. I guess most teachers probably should go back and apologize to their first classes, because yipe. But just kind of interesting. But, the 2 big themes here is, one is, can you get that depth of understanding the first time through stuff? And the other one is, are you doing what you planned on doing when you finished college? Now, yeah, I'm teaching physics. I'm also teaching chemistry, freshman physical science, high school STEM, and junior high STEM. And depending on the year, I may also teach computer science. And in the past few years, I've taught classes like anatomy, biology, earth science. And if you go back further, we start including like dual credit calculus, algebra 1, pre-calculus. I don't think I ever taught algebra 2. Nope, never taught algebra 2. Trigonometry, taught that. Geometry, 8th grade math. And and of course then you go back far enough, and I used to teach junior high, 7th grade or life science. And yeah, so I've taught the gamut, and it's just not where I expected to be. And you end up learning a lot by doing that. The big thing I see by teaching these classes is you get this wide variety. I shouldn't say wide variety. A more generalized view of science, and you start to see more of the connections between the different subjects, I guess. When I learned about, things like evolution, I was never a creationist or anything, or climate change. I'm never a climate change denier. But, I just okay, so they don't like evolution, whatever, I'll just teach it. But, I didn't think I'd be teaching it. I was just I guess I'll just learn it. But then I start teaching it, and I start to realize that, holy cow, if we don't have evolution, biology just falls apart. And then the climate change is holy cow, yeah, we can argue about some of the details and, some of the projections, but anthropomorphic climate change is not really up for debate. So, it's just kind of fun to see the connections between the different sciences. And you really get an appreciation of, why is carbon dioxide or methane a greenhouse gas? And you should look at the shape of the molecule and how they can bend and flex even within the molecule. Like, holy cow, that's why they can store a lot more energy than, say, oxygen or nitrogen. So anyway, there's that chemistry and some of that bond angle stuff coming into play. So I don't want to bore you with all that, but I just think it's interesting that I was thinking today, physics degree, there aren't very many of us actually teaching in North Dakota that have an actual physics degree. Most of the people teaching physics don't have one. They have like what they call composite science in this state, or something else. And I think you probably know, even if you're not one of them, you know a lot of people like that. They go to college for this, and then they end up doing this. So I think that happens like with history majors or art majors and stuff. People like to make fun of those kind of degrees. But think about what you're learning. Look a little deeper than the subject. Look at the skills you learn, like how to cite sources, primary sources, secondary sources. What are those? How to construct an argument based on evidence. Not necessarily lab type evidence, but actually, evidence, and nevertheless. You get a lot more out of that, and you realize, and this is one thing some people struggle with when they get to college, is that, holy cow, I can't just spout off my opinions. I got to back them up with facts. I don't know enough about that to really give you any facts. Okay, so get those facts. Learn more. Maybe have a little humility and say, oh, I don't know. Because that was a tough one to me the first time when I student taught. Especially, I honestly wasn't confronted with this for whatever reason. I had plenty of, oh my gosh, I am dumb. Why do I have to work so hard? My friends don't. I had that all through college. But that whole, you're teaching a high school class, and some kid asks you a question, you're like, I don't know the answer to that. And your brain goes through, can I make up something because they're a high school kid that I can probably get away with? Do I admit I don't know and have them think I'm stupid? You get that whole nervous feeling, and yeah, admit I don't know. But I will research it and find out for you tomorrow, and then follow up by actually researching it and finding out for him tomorrow. Which I don't even remember what the question was. It's just one that is just like... So, I remember that feeling, and I would say that was the right reaction, and I'm glad I did that reaction. That's what I do now. I'm a lot more comfortable saying I don't know. Sometimes I like to say I don't know even when I do know. Because sometimes you can help them think it through, and you're like, oh, we discovered this together, and they feel like they helped you out and you helped them out. That's a good trick to use too. If you're confident enough in it. So anyway, I've rambled long enough. We got the election coming up on Tuesday. I will be line judging a volleyball game that night, so I am so glad I did the mail-in ballot, because if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens, both new and old, and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, are you doing what you expected to be doing with your training in college or wherever you went? Or are you tangential to it? Or are you off in left field somewhere, totally not connected? Let us know down in the comments. And I guess the other big thing I would just wonder about is, when do you feel like you've mastered a topic? How do you know? Is it when you realize how little you know? Is it teaching stuff to other people? What is it? I phrased that really badly, and I'm sorry. I should have written that question down. But if you listen this far, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. And hopefully by the next time we're together, although I may actually film this before the election, hopefully by then we will know who won the election. So, bated breath, right? So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.